Good evening and welcome to our playoff rankings breakdown show. We do return this week with we weren't here last week because the FHSAA did not release the numbers, but here we are. We're back here on a Tuesday. I know we were originally supposed to be 6 o'clock, but here we are at 6:30 and
a little bit of trouble with the graphics tonight.
Yeah, apparently. So,
but we got them. It's ready. They're ready to go. So.
But the numbers are in, and that's the good news, too. So we can go through all these as well. I guess we'll go ahead and get started, starting in Class 1R.
Yes, indeed. And really, in 1R, there's not been many changes here. And it looks like what you're seeing here on the screen now in terms of the teams in Class 1R Region 1, the number of teams. You can't hear me, Marty, still. So I'm trying to figure out why Marty cannot hear me. So give me a second. So there. So there we go. Trying to figure out what thing and see if Marty can hear us in the thing here. So Marty, if you can hear me or not, I don't. No, we're trying
something there.
Yeah, trying to figure out why Marty is not all of a sudden.
Oh, there might be a short.
It might be a short here. So, but give us a second here in terms of that. But Marty, could you go ahead and read off on that one there?
Sorry. All right. Region 1. We start as you can see here. Bozeman, the number 1 seed still. And as the top 6 make it from this area for Region 1. Bozeman, there we go. You got it. Good job,
we go.
Josh. All right. Again, we're live, so, this is what happens sometimes. Holmes County is number 2, so they would both get buys at this point. And then, once again, Chipley and Vernon, the 3, the 6, and Jay and Northview, 4 and 5. No real changes this week. Freeport and Baker are the first 2 out. But really, Josh, the whole top 6 has stayed the same there.
Yeah, and really, as you're going to see the common theme in terms of 1R, a lot has not really changed here in the last couple of weeks since we've been on. So, in terms of that, let's kind of roll here with moving.
And by the way, I'm Marty Pallman. He's Joshua Wilson. I don't think we introduced ourselves. Joshua Wilson, the publisher or the editor of FloridaHSFootball.com. I am Marty Pallman, and we welcome you back to the show after a week off last week. Our playoff breakdown show. And now, as you said, we'll move to Region 2. We'll start moving through these in Class 1R. There's Bluntstown still at the top, number 1 seed. And number 2, Scylla Christian. So those 2 right now in the driver's seat for the buys. And then Port St. Joe and Sneeds in 3 and 6. Sneeds falling 2 spots, 4th to 6th. Cottondale moving up 2 to 4. And right now, Cottondale and Weewahitchka would be the 4-5.
No, absolutely. And of course, if you got comments, you can join us here on the comments and thing. And if you got a question and stuff, we'll be able to answer that. And we'll pop that up here on the screen as we go along. But Marty, not really big changes here. Again, as I mentioned, 1R, not really too many changes except that Cottondale's moved up too since the thing when we're talking about the rankings, we're looking at what was last week, which came out actually Wednesday morning. So so our forgiveness for no show due to no fault of our own.
No.
So
it wasn't us, but they did release it a day later than normal, so we're glad they were back on a Tuesday today. And speaking of that, think about this too. We're going to have one more ranking. Are they going to do it next week?
They will do it next Tuesday. They will do it next Tuesday, and
then
Sunday, November 5th, and then we'll do a big show
That's
later
a week from this Sunday. It's coming up. It's right next week. So.
Yes, quick. And it's hard to believe Thanksgiving's kind of running around the block too. Halloween and Thanksgiving.
Well, when we move along to Region 3, Madison County is now the top spot. Fort White, number 2. Both are having excellent seasons. Lafayette moves up a spot to 3rd, passing Union County. Union County now at 4th, and Brantford and Hilliard round out the Region 3. Hamilton County, the first team out.
Yeah, and there's only 7 teams in that region, so one team's going to get left sitting at home, and right now it looks like it's going to be Hamilton County at this particular point.
Yeah, that's right, only 7, so 6 make it from Region 3. Madison County, after their win over Suwannee a couple weeks ago in Oakleaf, they've had a couple big wins last 2 weeks. All right, and then Region 4, and this one is the region of death, I guess you could say here. Williston remains number 1. They got a big win at Hudson last week. They stay unbeaten, and then Hawthorne's still number 2. right behind Williston. And actually, Williston is kind of extending their lead a little bit over Hawthorne.
Yeah, I mean, 17.916 compared to 13.767. Hawthorne only has one more game left, and that's this week against Keelan's Christian. So I don't think that game is going to help them really much in terms of trying to catch Williston for that one spot. So it's really interesting how the top two teams in the state in terms of one are both sitting there in Region 4. And unfortunately, one of them, too, is only going to get to advance to the state semifinals. One of them is not going to. One of them will have to go home. So is it going to be Hawthorne looking for a second straight championship and fourth straight trip in a row to the rural classification championship, or is it going to be Williston this year, who with Robbie Pruitt is in the second year? So I mean,
Robbie Pruitt has obviously done a great job there at Williston, turning them around. Last year they went and beat in the regular season too, but they got knocked off in the opening round of the playoffs by Wildwood. So we'll see as that goes on. Williston Hawthorne will be a pretty good matchup, but that'd be a region final matchup actually. Region final. That's right. All right, Newberry right on the heels of those two, then Pahokee, Dixie County, and Chiefland. Right now on the outside looking in, Trenton and Wildwood there. So
yes, indeed, and of course, shifting from Class 1R to Class 1S, we work our way up from the ones to the twos, the threes, and the fours, since that's the way it's set up here, and then with the classifications between metro, suburban, and of course rural as well, And good evening to you, Michael Parsons here. Right. He's definitely right about this one, regional showdown between Hawthorne and Williston. I think that's most likely the likely scenario, but don't count Newberry out, who's sitting here on the heels right there at the third seed there in 1R Region 4. So definitely keep an eye there on those Newberry Panthers there.
And nearly beat Williston when they played. Those are the two losses of Hawthorne and Williston. So now, as you said, moving along to 1S Regions 1 and 2. Well, first Region 1. The top four make it. There's less teams in this class. So North Florida Christian right now looks like they are going to be district champs. They're on top. St. John Paul II in second. Monroe Day and McClay round out the top four here.
Yeah, and what's interesting is if you notice this thing is that McClay beat Monroe in week 8, and they still haven't been able to jump Monroe because Monroe has like a very tough schedule there in 1S, despite the fact that they're 1-7 records. So keep that in mind here. But if McClay can kind of win out here, win 2 more games, finish 5-5, they may have hopes of jumping Monroe Day. We'll see. Maybe they might even jump Monroe Day regardless of what because Monroe Day has to play North Florida Christian, and so that's what what we're thinking, and all that. Roger Cruz, whose comment he says, "Where's Bradford?" We're going to get to Bradford in a few minutes. They're sitting at 2S.
2S, yeah. In fact, that'll be coming up after we bring you 1M, but right now we're in 1S Region 2. Melbourne Central Catholic remaining on top. You see this on your screen. Trinity Catholic in the 4 spot. Holy Trinity and Halifax Academy of Daytona in the 2-3. Both those teams 7-2. Holy Trinity, Halifax 7-1. Trinity Catholic, by the way, plays PK Young this week for the district title, so the winner of that most likely will make the playoffs.
No, absolutely.
Young. PK Young right now is the first team out.
No, absolutely, and that's a big thing here, and right now, and it's everything. To be honest with you, Trinity Catholic, I think is going to still be stuck in there in that 4 seed. If they win their district out, Melbourne Central Catholic, who upset Holy Trinity to get to that 1 seed, is sitting in the driver's seat to win their district. So Melbourne Central Catholic, who was one of the worst teams in the state last year, is all of a sudden on the thing. So I would put them up there for candidate for most improved team on the season of 2023 right there. They're one of the ones right there, I'd say there is definitely most improved. And of course, it's really Halifax Academy. They're looking in prime position to make their first playoff trip ever. So keep an eye on it. Some really interesting scenarios there in Region 2 and 1S. And of course, we got to roll along here as we try to consolidate a little time here in terms of everything. But looking at it, and before we actually go, Michael Parsons, the strength of schedule is definitely a million times better. I will agree with you on that particular case. But the thing is my thing is Trinity Catholic's got to win some games somewhere here, and that's been the hard part for them this year.
Yeah, I think though if they make it, which they probably will, they're going to probably win this region. I agree with that, even though their record is going to be like 3-6 or 3-7 in the regular season.
I mean, they got Beholds. They got Beholds.
Yeah, they're not gonna win that game. They'll probably beat PK Young this week. I think probably lose to Beholds, so they'll be 3-7, and they'll be district champs. So, and then they could make it to Tallahassee. Who knows in that region or that 1S classification.
Now, Region 3 here in 1S, Marty. This is real interesting. Lakeland Christian lost last week. Victory Christian last week to John Carroll. Zephyr Hills Christian beat McClay, and then Cardinal Mooney lost to Bishop Verreau, which is very interesting in terms of that. It's so interesting here in this situation that John Carroll is sitting there on the outside looking in this region, and yet they beat Victory Christian. So John Carroll, I mean, they've got to find a way, and they've got True North this week, which is not going to be an easy battle for them.
No, it's not. The only team in this region that's clinched the district title is Cardinal Mooney, and 1S District 6. But as you said, a lot been going on there. Lakeland Christian getting knocked off by Victory Christian the week before that, a couple weeks before. Then Lakeland Christian losing last week, Victory Christian losing to John Carroll. A lot going on in that area. So going to be interesting to see, again, which 4 make it out of there. And then that brings us to Region 4, which takes us down to Southwest Florida for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Naples First Baptist still on top here.
Yeah, and they got Community School, who is, by the way, the number 2 seed. Community School sitting there 8-0. The FHA only recognizes them at 7-0 because their first week opponent was a team from overseas, and it's sitting there as listed as a varsity opponent. So they're listed as 7-0 on the FHA rankings, but they're 8-0 on the season. The big thing is that Community School, they're sitting there. I mean, the 8-0 record, I think, is a little deceiving. I think when you look at First Baptist's schedule, who they played, at the end of the day, I think First Baptist wins. First Baptist is going to hold that 1 seed. And what's interesting is that Evangelical Christian, I think, is in a position to win the district more. They've already beaten Moorhaven, but it's just a matter of how the power rankings go, and that's what's showing us right now here.
That's right. So that concludes Class 1S. As we will move over to 1M. Region 1 here at the top of this Region 1 is Providence, still 1M District 1, but they do host Trinity Christian this week. That'll be for the district title there in 1M1 as Trinity Christian beat University Christian. Providence also beat UC. UC right now the 4 seed. And there's Orlando Christian Prep. They are district champs in District 2 in 1M.
No, and a couple of weeks ago they were sitting there like at the 1 seed, and but lost to Bishop Moore, and then of course playing West Oaks, who's not really a strong boost to the schedule there. That really makes it very interesting. But this week is Providence Trinity Christian, Providence hosting Trinity Christian, and I think that we're going to see what the results of that game comes out to be. I mean, does Providence steal the thunder and take Trinity out of this one, and put them to a lower seed, and Providence takes the total control of that region? I mean,
they could if they can beat UC and Trinity. That'd be quite a year for Providence.
No, absolutely.
Already. They won 7 in a row. They lost their opening game to Fernandina Beach, and that's Region 1. Region 2, Clearwater Central Catholic still on top. They're district champs in 1M District 3,
and they're by a mile there in terms of when you're talking about those numbers. They're a little bit by a mile, but in terms of I guess to say maybe less than a mile. 18.010 to 14.843. I don't know if Carrollwood Day is going to catch them. So, but I feel like the 1-2 seeds are kind of almost in a firm hold. With Northside Christian and Indian Rock sitting there behind there.
Right. I would agree. And then St. Pete Catholic is the first team out. All right. The Region 3, we move to that as well, out of South Florida. And, well, here's your top team again in 1M, Chaminade Madonna. They have, speaking of leading by a mile,
yes,
they're at 24.07. Cardinal Newman is in second at 14.5. So there's a huge lead.
Yes.
There for Chaminade Madonna. They're 8-0. Haven't clinched the district yet, but are getting closer. Cardinal Newman, our district champion. So, and then you got Benjamin and Avant Garde out of Hollywood.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And of course, then you got the other flip side of Region 4 there sitting there, and you got True North sitting there at 1. I think True North's going to be pretty much a lock for that 1 seed based upon the numbers here. Looking at it, 11.500 compared to 7.757. Archbishop Carroll is a lock into the playoffs. They did win their district. They are a lock in. But True North, that one's interesting. I will tell you this. True North is not locked in as a district champ. Could not be locked in until Saturday, November 4th, the final regular season play date, by the way, because their game against Everglades Prep, who was added to the district, is on Saturday, November 4th. So a lot sitting there right there. But I expect True North to lock that in and get into the playoffs without any issue. It's, Everglades Prep is kind of far behind there in terms of the rankings. So, but looking at it overall, I think True North adds a win this week, by the way.
Which is why we will not be announcing these until November 5th. Because
yes,
there will be games on November 4th to decide district titles as well. All right. Time to move along to 2S. And We take a look at Region 1. Now back to the top 8 teams advancing. Walton, there's Grandpa Walton back on top this week, but not South Walton. But they're there, but just not against Walton this week. Walton and Godby would be matching up in the 1-8. Walton are district champs, by the way. Wakulla and Suwannee will play this week for the district title in 2S District 4. And as you see, Wakulla's in the 2 spot, Suwannee in the 5. Pensacola Catholic there at 4, and Florida High has also clinched the district title. So is South Walton, but they moved up this week to the 7 spot as Godby came into the 8th spot, replacing Gadsden County.
Yes, but Gadsden County and Godby play this week, so that'll be interesting to see what the outcome of that game is. And if Gadsden County gets back in, if they beat Godby this week, we'll see what happens there. I think that's going to be really interesting in terms of looking at those, what's going to happen with that 8 spot. Why we look at the first 2 out, because anything can happen in terms of these rankings. I mean, that's the big thing, is looking at this first 2 out, because we've seen teams jump from being 3 down into the rankings the next week. So that's critical right there, is keeping an eye on those first 3 out. And right now it's kind of closing in right now. That's always a flux, especially that 7 and 8 spots right there. And that 8 spot, I think, is definitely up for grabs here in Region 1. But, 3 of the 4 district champs are locked in. And of course, as you said, Wakulla Suwannee, we'll find out who's getting a playoff berth on Friday night.
Yep, the same can be said for Region 2. Lots of districts being decided this week. One of those involves the Bradford Tornadoes. They are still the 1 seed in 2S District 6, but they host Palaca this week, and the winner of that will be the district champion there as well. Palaca right now the 4 seed. Same for East Side. If they beat Santa Fe on Thursday night, they will be the district champion.
Which I think is almost a short guarantee.
I would think so. Santa Fe is not very good, but it's going to be it's going to be a little bit of an upset if they do lose. And you see Yulee in the 2 spots still. Bradford well ahead of them. Baker County is the 3.
And Baker County has locked their district up already, by the way, because they did beat Yulee. So that keep in mind in that Baker County is in. Yulee, even though Yulee's a 2 seed, Baker County is in. And, it's really, really interesting to see 3 teams there from 2S5, Baker County, Yulee, and Baldwin sitting there in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, that's right. So the question coming in asking, what does Walton have on?
And we got it, yeah. So let's put this for what it made. Marcus joins and says, what does Walton have on Wakulla?
Why they're number 1 and Wakulla's number 2?
I'm not really sure, to be honest with you, Marcus, on that one. I think honestly that would be at the end of the day. I think that ends up flip-flopping next week. I think Wakulla, bold prediction, Wakulla is sitting there on top of the 1 seed there at 10-0 next week. As I think they're going to beat Suwannee this week.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you, and I think
that might be one of our picks on
it is indeed. That game is at Live Oak, but I mean, either way, Wakulla, you're right. If they win that, they probably do pass Walton. All right, well, Region 2 we just did. Bradford, number 1 seed. We moved to Region 3. Well, here they are again. Cocoa Tigers. They remain in the top spot.
And well ahead of South Sumter, by the way.
20.046 Cocoa. South Sumter 14.18. Those teams closing in on district titles. Titusville still in 3rd. And then you have Hudson, who suffered its first loss last week to Williston, but they are district champs.
Yes, Hudson is the only team that is locked in a playoff spot. I mean, you look at the top. You look at these top 4 teams in the region. I mean, every region. I think you look at the top 3, top 4 teams. I think you almost a guaranteed sure bet that those teams are in a playoff. Maybe even the 5 and 6 are pretty much sure bets in there. It's that 7, 8 seeds that seem to flux each week. But right now, as it appears, I mean, now here's something. I've got Mountain Door sitting there at number 8, sitting there the Sting. Mountain Door and Eustis play. Eustis does have a 2-0 record in the district, but the Mountain Door could slide and win could force a tie in the district. I think actually win the district outright if they beat Eustis. So right, the second Mountain Door is sitting there, but if Eustis wins, Eustis will jump in, and Mountain Door is out, sitting there fighting for a spot. But as you can see, Marty, Eustis in the Village is sitting there on the outside looking in right at this particular moment.
Yeah, they are. That's interesting too. And Mount Dora, Nature Coast in that 7-8 spot as well for now. But we'll see if that continues. All right, Region 4 finally for Class 2S. Bishop Verot remains on top here. They actually move up a spot this week. Fort Meade falls to 2nd. They switch this week.
Yes, and the thing is we're going to have Bishop Rowe as head coach on the Gulf Coast Blitz here later this evening, and Richie Road, 8-1, and they got a big district showdown with Estero, who's sitting there in the 3 seed this week, and but I'll tell you what. Bishop Rowe, they're having a heck of a season. The quarterback, their quarterback name slipping my mind. I'll have that here later on, but set the school passing yardage record. So,
yeah, well, that's as you see, Estero, Lemon Bay, and Hardy, 4-5. Speaking of Hardy,
yes, and
time to hear from our
resident Emery Smith here, and he's like, we jumped 3 spots from the 8 seed to the 5 seed this week, and of course, beating Northport. That's huge right there for y'all, and but last 2 games, you got Lake Placid, and of course, the oldest rivalry in the state, DeSoto County, coming up at the week 11, and that'll be huge right there for Hardy right there in terms of all that. So, but Hardy sitting there, I think, firmly in a playoff spot. They lock it up this week if they beat Lake Placid. So I don't expect Hardy to have any much issues there. But that's I think the teams you're starting to see here in this region, they're going to be the teams that are in the playoffs.
Yeah, that game, as you said, the 105th meeting between DeSoto and Hardy next week. The oldest continuous rivalry in the state of Florida. Used to be a little bit of a back and forth with that St. Augustine and Palaca, I know. But
I'd say that it's proven. It's St. Augustine Palaca is the second oldest, so we'll keep it like that and going.
Right. That's right. So there you go. Bishop Moreau still on top. Mulberry falls 2, but they're in the 8th spot, and Clewiston moves up 1 as well. All right, we're going to move along to Class 2M.
Region 1.
Region 1. This has changed a little bit this week.
A region you're familiar with, Marty.
Yeah, Rain's still on top. They continue to win. Their only loss this season has been to Mainland. Bishop Moore's won 5 in a row since starting 0-3. Riverside this week, who won their district title a month ago.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe that.
They actually switched with Bishop Kinney this week. Riverside to 3rd. Bishop Kinney losing to Middleburg is 4th. Bowles 5th. So right now, Bishop Kinney and Bowles are matched up. They're going to play this week, in fact. For the 2M District 2 title, they play Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, you mentioned Bishop Kinney losing to Middleburg. We'll find out what the impact is on there in Middleburg and 3S here coming up here in a few minutes. So,
Andrew Jackson moving in this week to 7. They move up 2 to 7. Number 7 spot there with Bishop Moore, and then you have Episcopal falling 1 but staying in 8th as Wolfson fell out this week.
Yes, absolutely, and I think that what you're seeing here, I think might be the playoff picture minus the wranglings between Episcopal and Wilson. We'll see what happens there along the way, and but Bishop Moore, all they have to do is beat Lake Buena Vista this week and they're in. So I think that'll be an easy task there for the Bishop Moore Hornets, and they'll lock up a playoff spot. And next week, Marty, I think at this point we'll know almost every single district champ locked in except for the one obviously with one district what we mentioned earlier and one and any of the tiebreakers that are we're going to have to deal with. There are going to be a couple that we will have to deal with.
Right. A couple of comments again from Michael Parsons talking about the Reigns Vikings. Vikings are the clear favorite. Yes, they are. I would agree.
Well, I think he was talking about Bishop Rowe there because they are the Vikings. So, but Hornets, he was
more. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, and they can wrap up the district title this week, which is true. It's only a 2-team district with them in Lake Buena Vista. So, that probably will be no problem for Bishop Moore to win another district title.
No, absolutely.
All right, Region 2.
Yes, Region 2. Clearwater Calvary Christian sitting there at the 1 spot. They were down at 3 a few weeks ago, but now they're sitting there, I think, firmly in that 1 spot. They do have the district title. They are in the playoffs as we speak here, so they are locked in. But the rest of the scene is kind of like in flux, especially when we talk about the 7th and 8th seeds down at the bottom between Middleton and 2S and 2M5, Boca Ciega and 2M8. They have Lakewood. The power rankings have Lakewood ahead of Boca Ciega, but technically at Boca Ciega, all they have to do is beat Gibbs during the playoffs, and that would probably potentially put Lakewood out of the playoffs in this situation, just because Boca Ciega will jump based upon the fact that they're a district champ.
Yeah, and they've only had one win, and that was against Lakewood.
And I believe they actually have two. They're actually 2 wins now. So my apologies. So they are 2 They are 2-6. Actually, they have two because they did beat Holland. So they finally get their second win. All they do is get win number 3, beat Gibbs. They're in. So that's the situation. Middleton. All they have to do is win. They'd be in. They would put up 4 or 5 if they win this week. I believe they playing King. So all they do is beat King in the playoffs.
Right. Well, Calvary Christian's the only team that has clinched the district title at this point, and to him, District 7. So a lot will be decided this week as we head into week 10 this week of high school football on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. All right, Region 3, Plantation American Heritage. They already won their district. They're back on top, still on top, actually. Cardinal Gibbons still in the second spot. They would take on Stranahan right now. American Heritage. Well, it would be American Heritage versus American Heritage.
Yes, and that's the interesting thing. American Heritage and American Heritage. You can't. And honestly, that would probably be that would be no contest, to be honest with you. I mean, even Michael Parsons would probably pop on and say he agrees with that a million times right over. So there's that one right there in my thing. But St. Andrews, Somerset Kings, they actually play for a district title this week. Those two teams, I don't expect them to see there in the 4-5 really after this week. But Kings Academy, they play. They got Inland Grove to play, and they got it to finish off their things for a district title. But Right as we speak here, basically, and looking at the rest of it, I mean, it's pretty much. I think the teams you're seeing here are the teams that are going to be in the playoffs there from Region 3. Except that keep an eye out on Glade Central. All of a sudden, they're starting to win games. So let's see if they make a push and see if they can't backdoor themselves into that 8 spot.
Oh, Glade Central. I haven't said much about them this season.
No, we haven't.
That's interesting to see as they try to make a late run towards the postseason. All right, finally, Region 4 and 2M, and boy, this is continues to be Miami New Orleans region. Another big win for them last week over Columbus, who we'll talk about later. Still 8-0 and still a pretty good lead over Miami Central. Looks like they're on their way to a district championship as well.
Yes, all they have to do is beat North Miami Beach this week, and they're district champs. So that'll be the case there for the New Orleans Vikings. Miami Central, you know, they're probably going to garner a high seed here. You know, they're probably going to have that number 2 seed despite not being a district champ. But I could potentially see a rematch between New Orleans and Miami Central in the regional final. Region 4.
Yeah, you could. Booker T. Washington in the 3 spot. Gulliver Prep 4 both have clinched district championships. And then on the way down, you see St. Brendan, North Miami Beach up 1 this week. Miami Edison falls 2 spots and stays there number 8. Miami Northwestern moving up to the number 9 spot just outside right now.
Yeah, and I think, but here's the thing. I think Miami Northwestern is going to get shut out of the playoffs, but St. Brendan is also district champ, so they are in.
Right. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I did not have that highlighted, but they are.
Okay. All right. So, all right, let's go to 3S.
Region 1.
And still the St. Augustine Yellow Jackets are on top here. They're on their way to winning 3S District 4, as I believe they have to win.
They just got to beat Clay this week.
Clay, that's right. That's all they have left is you look further down, you see Lincoln right now is matched up with Middleburg. Middleburg moves up to number 7 after the win over Bishop Kenny, replacing Escambia. Escambia falls 3 spots all the way to 8th. They're still in, but barely at this point.
No, they are barely. They're barely just in. And the big thing about that is that you got Fort Walton Beach there sitting there on the knocking on the door. But the question is, does Fort Walton Beach have enough sitting there to be able to replace Escambia? I don't think so, considering Escambia has already beaten Fort Walton Beach, and I think that's going to be a big factor there in terms of how that is going to work itself out there. I think right now, in terms of the teams that you're talking about that are going to make the Region 1 playoffs in 3S, you're looking at them right now that are on the screen. What's real interesting, Columbia and Choctaw. Columbia would make a trip to Choctaw, who, by the way, who played in the regional final last year. So that would be an interesting first-round matchup.
Last year. Yeah, that's right. Well, and both are district champs. Choctaw's wrapped up 3S1, and Columbia already won 3S3. Lincoln has won 3S2, so we're waiting to see what happens in 3S4, which it looks like it's going to be St. Augustine at this point. But
yes,
they're the Broncos, man. Your Middleburg Broncos making a move.
By the way, if Middleburg makes the playoffs, it'd be the first time that they made playoffs in back-to-back years since 1989 and 1990.
That's right. I actually made that comment on the game last week. Game broadcast, Bishop Kenny and Middleburg. So that was a good stat. All right, we moved to Region 2, and they're the Vanguard Knights. Although they lost to South Sumter this past week, but that loss didn't really hurt them at all.
No, not considering they picked up a win last night against Tavares in a makeup district game. So Vanguard is now a district champ, by the way. So they are in.
They clinched the district title. That's right. So they're 7-2 now. Clamps at 3S5. Lake Wales in that second spot behind Vanguard.
And there was comments last week. Why is Lake Wales sitting there at the 2 spot? I to be honest with you, and I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. It might anger some people, but your schedule's weak, Lake Wales. Your schedule's weak, and I'm being honest with you. Your schedule is definitely a little weaker, and some of that's no fault of y'all's own. I mean, when you've got 2 of the weakest teams in the classification sitting there in that district, with Gateway and Liberty, it does not help in terms of the strength of schedule for Lake Wales. I mean, the big thing, to be honest with you, I just don't know if there's enough there for Lake Wales to jump Vanguard. Vanguard with 2 losses. I mean, if Lake Wales goes 10-0, I mean, I don't know if they're going to get that 1 seed. We'll have to see how it shakes out here in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, we will. As you look out through the rest of this region, Leesburg 8-1 in the 3 spot. They would play Auburndale right now, who's 7-1. That'd be a good matchup. Zephyr Hills and Cypress Creek in the 4-5. River Ridge, they are district champs in that 8 spot. They would play Vanguard right now in the opening round. And then Tavares falling out 2 spots with that loss last night. The Vanguard and Lecanto dropping 1 as well.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Zephyr Hills and Cypress Creek, they play each other this week for the district championship in District 7, so that'll be an interesting scenario. I be honest with you, Zephyr Hills has played a better schedule. I think Zephyr Hills ends up winning that game here, but that'll be a pick there on the Gulf Coast Blitz. We'll talk more about that.
And Michael Parsons agrees. He says, don't know how good LW Lake Wales is because of a soft schedule. Yeah, and that seems to be the belief of everyone outside of Polk County at this point. But Lake Wales, they are the defending state champs. So I think one thing we don't understand is some people want it to be based on the year before, and that's just not the way it works. It's not. It's based on the current season, and that's why you kind of see these things at times. But anyway,
some teams get better, and some teams get weaker, and
it ends up working itself out because you play each other usually. But all right, we move to Region 3.
This is, Mainland's sitting there with a stranglehold, basically, in that region. O'Galley's not really too far behind them, but I just don't see O'Galley jumping Mainland for that 1 spot. Mainland has played a tough schedule. And Coach Rowland, he said this before the game last week against Osceola. Osceola is the best 2-5 team you'll see in this state. And sure enough, they only scored 22 against Osceola. Osceola didn't. Right? It's a shutout, but Osceola didn't let them run the score up.
Yeah, well, and this week they're not going to have much trouble probably with Seabreeze, even though it is a rivalry. But kind of heading towards a showdown with Lake Mary next week in the final game of the season. Both teams may be undefeated. Lake Mary's got to get past the Apopka this week. But
no, you're absolutely right.
We'll get to that in a moment. Yeah, Mainland, as you said, Rockledge in that 3 spot. Sebring in the 4 spot. They moved up 3 spots this week to number 4. Jensen Beach District champs fall 1 from 4 to 5. And then they've got Satellite, Merritt Island, Fort Pierce, Westwood. And there's Seabreeze, the first team out right now. So that's a huge game for them this week. They can beat Mainland, they probably propel them into the playoffs.
It would not only if they beat Mainland, not only would it propel them in the playoffs, but
district champions, right?
Yes,
that's right.
So that would definitely set off the alarm bells. But
a lot to play for still for the Mainland Bucks against Seabreeze this week. All right, and moving to Region 4 in 3S, Golden Gate. They are the number 1 seed again. They're district champs, 3S District 16. And then the other district champion here at the bottom, Mariner. That's who they play in the first round. Cape Coral Mariner wins the district title in 3S14.
Yes, and Cape Coral Mariner, they have not won a district title in since the 1990s. So there you go. That's the big thing right there. But Mariner sitting there, they're sitting there the 8th seed right there, and that's where they got them out of. But you look at it, Naples too, but they're really there's not much difference between Golden Gate and Naples in terms of that 1-2 spot. So I got to keep an eye on things here. Naples got 1 more game left here this week, and then they're off in week 11. But Golden Gate got 2 more games to finish out the season. And I'd be honest with you, Naples' 2 losses are they're tough teams. 1 to Golden Gate and 2 to American Heritage Plantation. And Michael Parsons does say Naples did play on AHP second. Tough in the second half, and that's That's a pretty valid point here, but a loss is a loss in terms of the rankings here, and that's how the computer is going to look at it. So we'll see what happens there if Naples can finish it.
Yeah, Michael pointed out. Sorry, I meant to say Lake Mary's playing Seminole this week. I had it on our picks for Central Florida, but it is not a Popka. It's Seminole. So that is Lake Mary's got a tough enough game. We'll talk about them again in a moment. But yeah, that's Naples. As you said, they're going to be the number 2 seed, or they are right now. That Golden Gate win over Naples pretty much wrapped up the district championship for Golden Gate. So, all right, that's it for 3S as we move to 3M.
Yes, and well, no surprise here who is sitting there at that number 1 seed here once again here.
Edgewater Eagles. They are 9-0. They are champs of 3M District 3. They've clinched. Still at number 1, Seffner, Armwood, is 7-1. They move up to number 2 this week, replacing Tampa Bay Tech, who was 3rd. I guess Armwood beat Tampa Bay Tech.
No, that game is this week.
This week.
Tampa Bay Tech actually lost to Jesuit, who's in Region 2.
Right,
so,
right.
Yes.
That's right. We'll talk about Jesuit in a minute, but Tampa Bay Tech dropping to number 3. Then you got Oviedo, who has clinched the district title, 3M District 2. They're 4th. Orlando Jones and Fletcher, who's won 6 in a row now, starting to make a move as well.
Yes, and what's interesting is that, if Fletcher wins that district at Tampa Bay Tech, it would be a rematch of first round of last year where Tampa Bay Tech has to make the trip all the way up to Neptune Beach.
They beat Fletcher pretty badly, though, in that game.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, but yep, and Wharton and Wekiva at the bottom. Wekiva, they kind of switched spots from last week.
And Franklin Parks chimes in. Edgewater is back. I think
like
it seemed like it, but we'll see what happens here in the playoffs. I mean,
we might be heading to a showdown with Aquinas again.
And we've seen a few of those here as of late.
That's right. But all right, Region 2. And speaking of Tampa Jesuit, they're the top team in Region 2.
Yes, and it's still holding on that number 1 spot. And, of course, you got the big showdown coming this week with Hillsboro, who's sitting there in that number 3 spot here. And really, at the end of the day, Jesuit, I think, is going to be that 1 seed. But Hillsboro, do not ever doubt Earl Garcia Jr. and his Hillsboro Terriers. Don't doubt the coaching legacy there. But Jesuit, I feel like, is going to be that team. Largo's sitting there at 2 there. And interesting for St. Pete, who is, by the way, a district champ. They are locked in that 4 spot right now. So St. Petersburg is the one team that is in the playoffs there in that region right now.
Yeah, no real changes from last week in that region. Of course, that's mostly Tampa and St. Pete and Pinellas and Hillsborough County there. Seminole Osceola trying to make a run. They move up to the first team out. All right, Region 3. Speaking of the St. Thomas Aquinas Raiders, here they are, the number 1 seed, not surprisingly. They have not clinched the district title yet, but
they got to play Dillard this week. So and Dillard is 2-0 in the district. So that's what's going to happen. Right. There is that they got to get that. They got to get the W against Dillard, and they can lock it up. But I don't think St. Thomas misses the playoffs, regardless win or loss of that game. But would definitely have an impact on the rankings if they do lose to Dillard. But I don't see that happening. But and then
right.
It really is a matter of who shows up, who's hungry for it.
That's right. And Delray Beach Atlantic and Coconut Creek have clinched district titles. As you kind of look at that right now, Atlantic and Seminole Ridge would match up, and Coconut Creek and Plantation. That'd be an interesting one. Planchely and Dillard right now in the 4-5. So we'll see what happens between those two.
No, absolutely, and that's Atlantic Seminole Ridge would be a rematch of the district there for those two. Both of them are in District 9, and Coconut Creek Plantation. That would be an interesting rematch too from the regular season. Coconut Creek gave Plantation the business earlier this season. Gave them the business and blew them out on the road. And but we'll see what happens there and see if that rematch happens. Of course. After tonight, only one more set of rankings before they give us the final brackets for playoffs. Postseason is around the corner. It will be here before you know it.
That's right. So, Region 4 next week, in fact.
Yes.
Region 4, Homestead remains that number 1 seed. And then you got South Broward second right behind them. Both teams 7-1. South Broward has clinched the district title. And Hialeah also is our district champs in that number 4 spot right now. They would right now take on Miramar in the first round. Southridge and Hialeah American would match up. And then at the bottom of this, you have Miramar, Everglades, and Blinn Jesuit. Blinn Jesuit up 3 spots, moving into the top 8 this week.
Yes, and Blinn Jesuit is interesting is that they still got to play Homestead. Homestead hasn't clinched the district just yet. They got to play Blinn Jesuit. But if Blinn Jesuit beats Homestead could be an interesting scenario, but I don't see that happening, especially as the fact that Homestead has a much quality win over Columbus already this year, and Homestead is it's one of those thing. I think they're on the quest that they want to make it back to that state championship game. They want a rematch with St. Thomas Aquinas, but we'll see what happens here along the way.
Yeah, we will. It'll be interesting to see as we head along there in South Florida. All right, we're moving on to 4S, and boy, at the top, this is a team that Josh and I both saw last Thursday night. The Buchholz Bobcats. This is a team that's really good.
A team of destiny.
I mean, they might be. They're definitely going to be on top of Region 1. They did clinch the district title, but they beat Bartram Trail 44-7. We were building up that game to be like a.
I thought it was going to be a competitive matchup, but Buchholz was like they literally, after the kickoff, where Bartram Trail pinned them right there at the 15. It was, and we'll talk about more of that on the North Florida Blitz, which by the way, we'll have Chuck Bell on tonight. That's the way, right. So
yeah, but they were impressive. They were 31-0 at halftime, and they beat a pretty good Bartram Trail team. But Buchholz and Creekside would match up right now. Creekside moving back in with a win over Fleming Island. They won 49-48, by the way. And then Creekside back in at number 8. And then you have Ponte Vedra and Childs would match up. That'd be a pretty good first-round matchup. Ponte Vedra has not clinched the district title, but they are getting close to that.
Well, they can if they win over Nice this week.
Right. They got to beat Nice. And then Niceville and Pace, that'd be a first-round matchup. Bartram Trail and Navarre. You got a lot of good first-round matchups there if that continues in Region 1. And Leon, who started the year 5-0, is 6-0, is now fallen out.
Yes, they've been blowing out. They were blown out by Childs in week 8. They were blown out by Niceville last week. I mean, so Leon has kind of struggled there. And Gene McKenzie, good evening to you. And he thinks this is the year for Buchholz. I think it could be too.
Impressive. And I think the best part you see is their defense. We do is really good. But Trace Johnson had his best game against the best team they played so far. 3 touchdowns, nearly 400 yards. And the son of Doug Johnson, another Buchholz legacy. So yeah, I think this might be Buchholz's year, but they got to get through Ponte Vedra's and the maybe they see Bartram again, and so I don't know Region 1, and then of course the teams in Region 2 and Region 3.
And good evening to you, Charles Bell. As you said, you're here for you're tuned in. Let's go Knots, and that's what he says right there. And of course, Michael Parsons is Bobcats are lethal. Yes, indeed, the Bobcats are lethal as we have seen here this season so far. But
as you mentioned, Lakeland, they are they're at the top of Region 2.
They're still there at the top, despite the fact they dropped another game, 6-3 here.
Losses for Lakeland. They don't usually lose that many. In 3 years.
But it's the first year without a guy named Bill Castle.
That's true. But Lakeland's still the number 1 seed. They won their district, Forest District 7. Wiregrass Ranch moves up a spot to number 2, and Springstead moves up 2 to number 3. Bartow falling to the 4th, but Bartow's still with a chance to win the district title.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting that district down there, District 4S8, they're in a 3-way tie right now. So the tiebreaker is going to have to break it right now. Bartow's sitting there in that lead right there. But what's interesting is that there's Winter Haven and there's Haines City all sitting there right there in the mix. And yes, Michael Parsons is correct. All 3 of Lakeland's losses, by the way, have been at home at Bryant Stadium.
That's rare, too.
That is a rare thing that we ever talk about here. Lakeland losing 3 games and all 3 games being lost at home in the same season. So those are words that you never put in the same sentence until right now.
But they're still on top of the region because of their
strength of schedule.
That's right. And we do have a lot of other people that are chiming in that are Lakeland supporters. So,
yes, no, absolutely.
Michael Parsons calling out a little bit there. But Haines City moved up 4 spots and now is the number 8 spot. Lake Gibson falls out from last week.
Yes.
So, all right, we'll move along to Region 3. And now here's the one we got to talk about.
This is head scratcher here. You want to talk about a head scratcher, Marty? Please lead on that one.
DeLand beats University last week. 14-3. DeLand wins the district title in 4S9, and yet DeLand is the 4th seed, and University stays number 1. How does this happen?
I don't know. There are questions. This is the perplexing question of the evening. Why is University sitting there at 1? And I don't want to hear that DeLand's strength of schedule is not there. The DeLand strength of schedule is there. Come on. This is, their 2 losses are to Mainland and Sanford Seminole.
Yeah.
That is nothing to sneeze at, by the way.
No, not at all. And Mainland, one of the top teams in the state. I don't understand it. I mean, DeLand, in fact, they moved up this week to number 4. They were in the 6th spot, so they were kind of low already. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but
I think the next 2 weeks are going to give us the answer. And if there's anything in that, there's going to be. I think I think it's going to make for a good opinion piece here in terms of when we think is when we look at what did the rankings get right? What did we think the rankings got wrong here in terms of looking at certain things when the final set of rankings comes out and how the numbers all sort out and all that. But
let's take a look at what Charles. Well, first of all, Michael Parsons is saying here. Josh Marty, what do you think of Heritage Panthers? Palm Bay Heritage.
Well,
Panthers
yes,
in the 3 seed right now,
and they're a district champ, 7-1 right now in the season. They got Harmony this week, which I think they'll easily take care of. Harmony is 0-2 in the district, so that's why Heritage is in as a playoff district champ. I don't think Heritage has anything else really to think. I think potentially 9-1 is not a far fetched idea, but really I think the question is 5 shutouts, yes. My thing, though, is the strength of schedule, and I think that's what may potentially hurt them down the line here in terms of being the 3 seed. I think DeLand ends up jumping them here in terms of once things are done.
Right. And by the way, Charles Bell also chiming in again on Lakeland. Keep in mind, this is a good point. Venice lost 3 games last year and finished 7-3 and went all the way to the 4S state championship. And Venice can do that, and the Lakeland can. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Lakeland can definitely do that. No, I don't think we're saying it, but they can't. It's just a little bit of an off-season, regular season for Lakeland.
No, you're absolutely right there, Marty. I think you're absolutely right on that. I think that's going to be really, interesting for that. And so,
all right.
Anyway.
Speaking of Venice, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Region 4, Venice is number 1 here again, and they won their district title in 4S District 14. They pretty good sized lead. Actually, they switched spots with Manatee. Manatee falls to 2nd. Sarasota Riverview moving up to 3rd, replacing Naples Gulf Coast, and then the rest of this, as you see, Palmetto, Immokalee, Charlotte, and Lakewood Ranch.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to change much here. I think Charlotte ends up most likely winning their district here this week, but I think what's interesting to keep an eye on here in terms of looking at everything else is that Palmetto, the Gulf Coast Immokalee matchup. That's for a district title this week in 4S16, and that could be a very, very intense battle. I expect a barn burner, to be honest, in that game.
Barn burner, that's right. We like those. All right. Finally.
Last
but
class.
Not least, Class 4M, definitely not least. And Region 1, we talked about Lake Mary a few times. There they are, still at the top of Region 1. They have not clinched the district title yet. In fact, nobody has in this district, but I think Mandarin will this week against Sandalwood.
Well, and then you got Lake Mary Seminole. That will decide the district there, and 4M2. That'll decide everything right there. I want to say that Boone may have actually clinched their district, and I think that's I'll verify that. But I think Boone actually has clinched their district. But I will check here.
Okay.
I'll double check that. I think I might be wrong. I may have actually looked at that and thing. Let me double check that here as we're talking here, because what's at the end of the day, it's Boone's sitting there 3-0 in their district. Let's take a look here and see. Boone has got left. Who do they got left on the schedule here? Boone's sitting there 3-0. Boone has who left on the schedule? They have Oak Ridge, actually, who is I want to say 2-1. So yeah, Boone can clinch this week. They haven't totally clinched, but I expect them to clinch.
Yeah, and Lake Mary and Seminole, as you said, number 1 and number 2 play for a district title this week. So that'll be interesting. Winter Park unbeaten, sitting in that 3rd spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you this, Boone is actually the number 9 team in that region. Atlantic Coast is actually number 8, and Atlantic Coast would be shut out of making the playoffs if Boone does go ahead and capture Atlantic Coast is sitting there in a position where they're just going to be probably potentially shut out no matter what they can do.
Yeah, I think if Mandarin beats Sandalwood this week, Mandarin will clinch the district title, and that'll be, I don't think Atlantic Coast has a chance, but we will see this week as well. And then moving along to Region 2, Riverview Sumner ahead of Riverview.
Yes.
This week. Sumner And River, well, they are not in the same district, or they are.
They are in the same district,
right.
and well,
Sumner beat Riverview.
But what's interesting, Sumner beat Riverview, but Durant actually holds in the terms of that district right this second. So on Durant and Riverview, I believe, play this week. So that's going to be interesting. If Riverview beats Durant, there's a 3-way tie scenario potentially setting up in that district there. So it's really, really interesting to see what happens.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It will be interesting to see how that comes out. Tampa Plant moves up 2 this week to number 3. They are in the lead in 4M District 7.
And when we first started doing this, when the first playoff rankings came, Plant was sitting on the outside looking in. Now I knew that would happen. The Plant would rise up to the crop, to the cream of the crop there.
That's right. Not Dr. Crop, the cream of the crop.
Yes. Cream of the crop, yes.
This has okay, I see Sumner's here on my list twice. All right, got it. So Plant right now would face against Palm Harbor University.
And there's an interesting scenario where that district could end up in a 3-way tie, especially if Palm Harbor University, there could be a potential chance that depending on what happens, Steinbrenner and Sickles play this week, Palm Harbor and Eastlake play this week. And there's just a lot of scenarios there. So, but Palm Harbor right now is sitting there potentially in a driver's seat. So we'll see what happens there.
We got the back and forth here. Charles again saying that I think Lakeland.
He thinks Lakeland will make it back to the
Florida State Championship. I'll see everyone with a few stars. And then Michael Parsons says Dreads won't beat Buchholz or Venice. And this is a good argument to have. Lakeland missed the championship. I got to say to Charles, if they have to beat Buchholz, it's going to be tough. I mean, I'm telling you, there's a team up here in this part of Florida that can beat Lakeland.
Especially looking at the numbers right now, Buchholz would host Lakeland in the state semifinal based upon the numbers right now.
It would be at Citizens Field, and that's what I mean. I think Buchholz at home. They haven't lost a home game now in 3 years either, so it's been a while. But all right, let's move along. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm just telling you, go ahead and move along.
Right, Region 3, we got 2 more to go here. Region 3, Palm Beach Central continues to be on top here, followed by Coconut Creek Monarch, and the rest of this list, Jupiter, Palm Beach Gardens would face off Boca Raton and Santa Lucius. And then the bottom, Spanish River and Palm Beach Lakes right now. So as Stoneman Douglas is trying to make a late run.
Yes, but what's interesting in terms of looking at this district, Jupiter, Palm Beach Garden play for a district championship this week. Boca Raton already beat Santa Lucia's for a district championship. Spanish River sitting there in the mix. Their first year back in district play in a few years. That would be really an interesting scenario there to go play Monarch. So, but right now, a lot happening here. 2 weeks left. 2 weeks. We have seen crazy things happen in 2 weeks' time in terms of playoff positioning here. Ever since they started going to bracketing here in the playoffs since 2017 here, so it'll be really, really interesting to see what happens.
All right, and this is it. Region 4, Miami Columbus. Despite losing last week to Miami New Orleans, they're still on top. That really didn't hurt them at all. Hasn't won 4M District 15 yet. Meanwhile, Miami Palmetto, they are district champs, right behind Columbus. As Davie Western, both are district champions.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think this is going to be interesting at the end of the day here in terms of what we see here. Columbus, I think, is going to be that 1 seed despite being 7-2. I mean, I just don't know if there's enough for Palmetto to catch Columbus, but in terms of the numbers, it's not very far off. We'll see what happens here. Columbus only has 1 game left here. I believe Palmetto also only has 1 game left here as well. So we'll see what happens here. Western is actually in the playoffs too. So, but West Broward could clinch a district championship this week, and that could potentially all that could lock up itself here, and we'll see here. But Coral Gables, Miami High, the first 2 teams out, but we'll see if anything changes here.
All right, and that's it. We've covered all of it, and go ahead.
And then Michael Parsons, I think the top 4 seeds are set here in terms of that.
Yeah, it looks like it.
And then Columbus versus Western at the end of this region. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. We'll see what happens here. Miami Palmetto might have something to say about that there, Franklin. So we'll see what happens there and all that. So, and all that. So yeah, absolutely, Marty.
All right. Well, we started a little bit less than an hour tonight. We started a little bit late, but we've got some more shows to get to tonight, so we got through that about as quickly as we can. But we will do one more of these next Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, with the final numbers, and then, of course, November 5th, we'll have a selection special, Sunday the 5th.
Yes, absolutely. And then we'll talk. And then during the playoffs, we'll be talking more playoffs than our regional shows, because at that point, it's all about who's going to win and who's going to go home.
That's right. So we will talk about that next week and through the month of November. We appreciate you watching our playoff breakdown show tonight. Coming up in just a few moments, we'll have the South Florida Blitz, and we have all that going on all night long as we head into Week 10 of high school football. For Joshua Wilson, and I am Marty Pallman. So long for now.